Now next topic is literacy. We have read in the previous class about the writing system and how the writing was done, and it was not a writing which contains consonant and vowels only, rather it was syllabic in nature, and there were hundreds and thousands of signs which had to be remembered while writing. So writing was not an easy task. If writing was not an easy task, then what kind of literacy was there and how many people used to be literate? So because there were a number of words or number of syllables which had to be kept in mind while writing, so there were only a few individuals who could write and read. Means literacy was not widespread because it was not an easy task to be literate. And if a king could write or read, then he used to write about his achievement in any boastful inscription where he used to inscribe that he has acquired that sort of skill through which he can read and write, because it was considered to be a skill of a par excellence. Writing reflected the mode of speaking. The way we used to speak, that used to be written. It was the kingship that used to organize the trade, and how writing was helpful in organizing the trading activities we can understand through a story which is also given in your book. And this story is about the king Enmerkar, who was the earliest king of Uruk. Enmerkar was associated with the organization of the first trade of Sumer. In the early days, the epic says, there is an epic long narrative poem about his achievement of the trade as well as writing. Trade was not known, and Merker wanted lapis lazuli. He wanted lapis lazuli to beautify the temple, and which was not found in Mesopotamian area. Rather, it was brought from distant land, and that is called Arata. So he sent his messenger, and messenger heeded the words of the king. By night he went just by the stars, means he continued his journey day and night. By day he would go by heaven sun divine, means when he used to rise the mountain, so it seems that he is very close to the heaven. So he went through the mountains during the day and night, and he had to go up into the mountain ranges and had to come down out of the mountain ranges. The people of Susa is a city which has been described in this narrative poem, below the mountain, saluted him like the tiny mice. Means when we are at the elevation or at the height, the things which are on the ground, they seems to be very small in size. As a result, he described that the people and the city of the Susa was looking like a tiny mice. It used to look very small. 5 mountain ranges, 6 mountain ranges, 7 mountain ranges he crossed, means he crossed many mountain ranges. And when he reached Susa, at that time he asked the king of the Arata to part with the lapis lazuli, but after a long journey, king denied to give him lapis lazuli, and he came back to the king Enmerkar. Then Enmerkar again sent him with some promises as well as some threats, and he again went to the Arata. So he took many journeys from Arata to the Uruk, and while coming and going, every time he was going with different promises and different threatening words. So he got all the messages mixed up. Then Enmerkar formed a clay of tablet with his hand, and he wrote the words down. In those days there had been no writing down of the words on clay, and given the clay tablet, the ruler of Arata examined the clay. The spoken words were looking like the nails to him. His face was frowning, and he kept looking at the tablet because it was something which surprised the king of Arata. In this way, this kind of inscription were written by the ruler of Mesopotamia when they used to have the skill of writing and reading. So they used to make some boastful inscriptions of like this when they used to know the writing and reading skill. So this was a skill of great achievement. And now urbanization in southern Mesopotamia, temples and kings. Temples were also an important part of the cities of Mesopotamia, and what kind of role was played by the kings while building these temples. By 5000 BCE, settlements began in Mesopotamia, and with the passage of time, they emerged as the city. And the earliest cities were of three types. First, cities that developed around the temples. The first city which developed in Mesopotamia, and it developed in the southern part of Mesopotamia, and it developed around the temple. Second type of cities were those cities which developed as the center of trade. Like Euphrates became the world trade route, so the city which were joined by the Euphrates, they also became the trading city of that time. And one such city we will discuss later on, that is the Mari, which was in the hilly areas of Mesopotamia. And the third one was the imperial city, where the king used to have his capital. That kind of city were also developing in Mesopotamia at that time. The earliest known temple was a small shrine made up of the unbaked bricks. Means the temples were not initially made up of the baked bricks, rather they were made up of the unbaked bricks. And with the passage of time, the temples became more beautiful and more elaborate. Temples were residence of the various gods. Mainly, there were two gods which were worshipped in the Mesopotamia. First of all, moon god of Ur. The ancient city was Ur, and its god was considered to be the moon. Inanna, she was the goddess of love and war. She was also having many temples in the Mesopotamia. Temples became larger over the time, and several rooms were built around the open courtyard. So this is the specimen of the excavation which was done at Mesopotamia. Here you can see that rooms were built around this courtyard. So there was an open space in between the rooms, and rooms were built around that open space. Temples always had their outer walls going in and out at regular interval. Means there was no regular boundary which was separating the temple from the rest of the city. It was going in and out at a regular interval. This is the image of the goddess Inanna. You can see from here, it has been extracted from the Mesopotamian temples. You can see that this is the specimen of the temple which have been excavated from the Mesopotamian region. This is called Ziggurat, and this is another view of this temple. So this sort of the temple used to be built in Mesopotamia. In Mesopotamia, God was the focus of worship, and people used to bring for him grain, curd and fish. The god was also considered to be the theoretical owner of the agricultural fields, the fisheries and the herds of the local community. So they used to offer whatever they used to produce for themselves, and the best thing were offered to the god of Mesopotamia. And production processes such as oil pressing, grain grinding, spinning and the weaving of woolen cloth done in the temple. So temple was not only a place of worship, rather it was also associated with different economic activities as well. The temple gradually developed its activities and became the main urban institution by organization of the production. So a lot of production was done in the temple, and it used to employ merchants, and a number of record keepers were also employed to keep the record of the incoming and outgoing things from the temple. Now, what role was played by the king in the construction and maintenance of the temples in Mesopotamia? As the archaeological record shows that villages were frequently shifted from their place, they were relocated because of the flood in the river, because the area used to be submerged under the water as the river changes its course, so they used to be relocated. And there were some man-made hazards also, because sometimes the people who used to be in the upstream, they used to channelize the water towards their field. As a result, the areas in the downstream used to face the drought-like situation. So the people who used to live in the downstream, they had to be dislocated from that area, and this also resulted in the conflict between the people of upstream as well as of the downstream. So you can see here also, upstream stretches of the channel could divert so much water into their field that villages of the downstream were left without the water. As a result, the conflict used to be there, and there used to be one victorious chief who used to oblige their follower by distributing the loot and prisoners from the defeated groups. So these prisoners were the war captives which were captured during the battle, and they were brought to work for the temple and for other various kind of work in the city. Victoria's chief offered precious booty to the gods and thus used to beautify the community temple. And for the beautification of the temple, he used to ask his people to bring stones, metal ores, and to make bricks so that he can make a beautiful temple. Like we have read in that epic of Anmerkar, he sent his messenger to bring the lapis lazuli for the purpose to beautifying the temple. So in this way, the temples used to become more elaborate and beautiful, and the king used to play an important role in it. There was another way to beautify the temple and to construct the temple. Hundreds of people were put to work at making and baking clay cones, and that used to be pushed into the temple, and they were painted in different colors. In this way, a colorful mosaic used to be created, and the temples used to look very beautiful at that time. And mainly the king used to mobilize all the workforce to beautify the temple. Now, what kind of life used to be in the city of Ur? We will read about the social life in the city of Ur. In Mesopotamian society, there used to be a nuclear family system, means there used to be single family system. Although a married son and his family often resided with their parents, and the father was considered as the head of the family. And we know very little about the procedure of marriage at that time, but a little which we know, according to that, a declaration was made about the willingness to marry by the bride's parent. And when the wedding used to take place, gifts were exchanged by both parties, and they used to eat together and make offering in a temple. Now we will read about the town planning of Mesopotamia. So in Mesopotamia there used to be narrow winding street, and that indicates that wheeled cart could not have reached many of the houses. As a result, sacks of grains and firewood would have arrived on donkey's back, and narrow winding street and irregular shape of the houses tells us that there was the absence of town planning, and town planning was not there in Mesopotamia, but there was a good town planning in the cities of Harappan civilization. Second is that there was no street drain, as it has been found in the city of Harappan civilization like Mohenjo-daro. So there was no drainage system where waste water of the city could be sent outside the city through the drainage system. Drains and clay pipes were instead found in the inner courtyard of the Ur houses. But there was a proper drainage system in Mohenjo-daro which was not found in the city of Ur. There was drains and clay pipes that was in the inner courtyard of the Ur houses, and it is thought that house roof were sloped inwards, and water through these pipes used to be gathered in the inner courtyard of the house itself. It was not sent outside, rather it used to gather in the inner courtyard of the house itself. And people of Mesopotamia have swept all their household refuse into the street. As a result, the waste which was swept into the street was downtrodden under the feet. As a result, the level of the street used to rise up, and the threshold of the house used to remain lower than the street. So the mud used to enter into the house. As a result, thresholds also needed to be raised after some time. Otherwise, the waste material of the street as well as the mud of the street during the rainy season would come into the house itself. So that was also not the proper system. And next is light came into the rooms not from the window, rather it used to come through the doorways, and it was done to keep the privacy of the house, and the doorways were the only medium through which the light could enter into the house. Apart from that, there were certain superstitions about the houses, and we have found a clay tablet which had recorded certain kind of omens in Mesopotamia. And according to these omens, a raised threshold brought wealth, and if the threshold is lower than the level of the street, then it used to be unlucky for the owner of the house. And second is, the front door of a house should not open towards another house, and if it is so, then it was considered to be lucky, means the two houses should not have their front door against each other. That should not open against each other. And next is, if the main wooden door of a house opened outward instead the inwards, the wife of that house was considered to be a torment to her husband. So that was also not considered to be lucky, and it was considered as unlucky situation. But after all, there can be seen a town cemetery. Means town cemetery was there, and in which the graves of the royalty and the commoners have been found in the houses itself. But these were only a few, and dead bodies of the royal family were buried with the jewelry and gold vessels. That tells us about the social status of that person. And wooden musical instruments also were found in these graves of the royal family, and the ordinary people's graves were not having such kind of things. Now we will read about the next topic of the chapter, second, writing and city life, and it is about a trading town which developed in the pastoral zone, not in the agricultural zone, which was in the southern part of Mesopotamia, where agriculture used to be very good. So this town did not develop over there, rather it developed in the pastoral zone. And as I told you through the map that where the pastoral zone used to lie, it used to lie in the steppe region of Mesopotamia, which was in the upstream of the river Euphrates and Tigris. So after 2000 BCE, the royal capital of Mari flourished. So this was the city which developed in the pastoral zone, and it flourished a lot at that time. Herders used to exchange their young animals, cheese, leather, meat, and whatever they used to exchange their product in lieu of grain, metal tools, because these were not produced in the area where the town Mari used to be located. So they used to exchange their animal products with the grain, metal, tools which were not produced in the area of pastoral zone. So there was a kind of barter system among the sedentary people who were agriculturalists as well as the pastoral people. In Mesopotamian, nomadic communities of the western desert filtered into the prosperous agricultural heartland. So nomadic communities as well as sedentary people used to live together in that area, and both work were going on simultaneously, agriculture as well as animal rearing. So there used to be a sort of communication between the pastoral community as well as the agriculturalist people. And shepherds at times used to come in the areas of the agricultural fields as a herder. They used to come as the harvest laborer during the harvesting season. They also acted as hired soldiers for the king of that area, for the chief of that area, and occasionally due to their merits, because they were very good at their physique as well as they were very good warrior. So they rose to the higher ranks and they became prosperous, and they also settled down in that area. So they left their earlier identity of the pastoral community and they started living a settled life. And the king of the Mari used to be very vigilant about these newcomers, because he was very alert about the arrival of these newcomers, as they used to pose certain kind of threat to the city of Mari also. These herders who used to remain in the area of Mari, they were closely watched by the ruler and his men, and the camps of the herders are mentioned frequently in letters between the kings and officials. They used to exchange certain kind of secret letters uh, between the officials as well as the kings. In one letter, an officer writes to the king that he has been seeing frequent fire and signals at night sent by one camp to the other. So, in this way, this can be a kind of communication between the two camps, and they might have been planning an attack on the city. So, generally, there used to be a threat from these people, and the king had to be very courteous about these newcomer people. That was the pastoral people who used to live in the area of Mari city. You can see from here the map of the city Mari, and this is the river, you can see here, and this is one of the canal which has been extracted, or this can be a distributed from this river which was passing through a city which is in a circular shape. This is the city of Mari. So the river used to pass through the city of Mari as well as the area surrounding the city of Mari. You can see that this is the river valley and it is having agricultural fields, and on the side you can see that these are the rocks and mountains where agriculture is not that good. This is the place which has been excavated in the area of Mari kingdom, and this is the lost palace of King Jimri Lim. And King Jimri Lim was having a big palace and it was excavated by the archaeologists. So this is the remain of that palace of the King Jimri Lim, and a layout plan of that palace has also been given in your book as well. This is one building which has been excavated from the city of Mari by the archaeologist, and this seems to be a kind of temple. It resembles with the building of a temple. So these are the remains of the city of Mari, which used to be an important city at that time in Mesopotamian civilization. Now the next topic, that is life in the city of Mari. So here we will read about the social life as well as the political life and the economic life of the city of Mari. So Mari used to be located at the prime position on a river route, and the river was the Euphrates, and Euphrates was known at that time as the world trade route. So a lot of trade was taking place through the river Euphrates. You can see that this is the map which is also given in your book, and it tells us about the region where Mari was located. This brown color signifies the mountainous region. This is the yellow color, it signifies the slopes, and thereafter the river valley lies here and it is full of the silt. So the green area and this area is full of agriculture, and the rest of the areas were having pastoral kind of life. And this is the location of city of Mari. You can see that the trade used to take place from the north to the south in this way, and boat used to move like that. So a lot of articles were transported from the northern part of the Mesopotamia to the southern part. And what were used to be taken through the boats through these river routes? These were the woods, copper, wine, tin, oil, etc. And they were brought from the northern areas of Mesopotamia, which lies in the northern region of Mesopotamia, like the Turkey, Syria, Lebanon, which were in the northern side. From here boat used to carry all these items, and they used to bring like the wood, wine, oil jars, and they used to move to the downstream, which was in the southern area. So the southern cities were connected to the northern area through the river route of Euphrates. So officers of this town, they used to levy taxes from the boats who used to halt at this city while moving from the northern side to the southern side. And they used to charge a tax which used to be equivalent up to the 1/10 of the total value of the goods. So it was 1/10 of the total value of the goods. So a lot of taxes used to be collected by the officers at Mari, and it used to be one of the source of the income of the city of Mari. And Mari was not a militarily strong city. The military of Mari was not that much stronger, but still the city became quite prosperous. It became quite affluent. And how it could become quite affluent? Because of the trade which was taking place between the northern side and the southern side, and it was at the prime position at the bank of river Euphrates. So that was the reason why Mari became a prosperous city at that time. Now, what kind of the culture used to be there in the city of Mesopotamia, and how the cities were considered to be an important part of the Mesopotamian culture. The city of Mesopotamia was having the population of a mixed culture, and the people from different communities and different traditions used to live in the city of Mesopotamia. And Mesopotamians used to give great importance to the cities, and this evidence we get from an epic which was written at that time, and this epic is known as the Epic of Gilgamesh, and it reminds us the pride of the Mesopotamians who used to take in the cities of Mesopotamia. Gilgamesh was the ruler of Uruk. He was the ruler of Uruk. This is the image of the city of Uruk, which is surrounded by a boundary wall, and this is one of the magnificent city of Mesopotamia. And he was a great hero who subdued the people of the far and wide. It means who invaded the areas to far and wide, and he conquered them. So he was a great ruler of Uruk. He got a shock when his heroic friend died. One of his friends died, and he was grieved by his death. Then he set out to find the secret of immortality. How the man could become immortal. He wanted to find out that secret, so he left the city in search of that secret. And after a heroic attempt, when the Gilgamesh failed, then he returned to the Uruk. Then he consoled himself by walking along the city wall back and forth. You can see that there is the city wall around the city of Uruk. So he walked forth and back on the city wall, and he consoled himself, and he took pride that how great city Uruk was at that time. So Uruk was an important city and which was lost later on. So the Mesopotamian people used to take pride in their cities, and they used to recall these great cities in their poetry, like the Epic of Gilgamesh. One such epic we have already discussed, that is the Epic of King Enmerkar, who sent his messengers to bring the lapis lazuli to beautify the temple as well as to beautify the city also. Now we will discuss about the legacy of writing, which is an important legacy of Mesopotamian civilization. It can be divided into three parts. They wrote about the time reckoning method, how they used to calculate the time, and it was written on the clay tablet at that time, which we have recovered from the Mesopotamian sites. What kind of mathematics was there? So we come to know about certain mathematical inventions which were made in the Mesopotamian civilization and which are still very important for the mankind. So we have got certain kind of clay tablets where mathematical calculations has been given. And astronomy, they also achieved a lot in the field of astronomy, and we will discuss them one by one. Now first of all, scholarly tradition of time reckoning. First of all, they divided the entire year into the 12 months. So this came from the Mesopotamian civilization. The day was divided into 24 hours, and the hour was divided into 60 minutes, and we are still following the same system which was developed by the Mesopotamian people at that time. Then what kind of achievement they were having in the field of astronomy? They used to, now coming to the astronomy, whenever there used to be solar and lunar eclipse, they were carefully observed. They used to note down the occurrence of the sun and the moon, and they also used to observe the position of the stars and the constellation in the sky, and carefully observation of this led to the certain other kind of invention at that time. Then what kind of the achievement of the people of the Mesopotamia in mathematics? During around 1800 BCE, we have got a clay tablet which tells us about the multiplication and the division tables of that time. How the square root of the 2 was given in the clay tablet, and it is also very close to the square root, which we draw out today in modern time, and certain kind of riddles were given to the students to solve, like if a field of an area such and such is covered with one finger of deep in water, find out the volume of the water. So such kind of the mathematical sums were given to the students to solve them. So they were very good at time reckoning, in the calculation of time. They were good at astronomy as well, and they also made a calendar which is still very practical. They were also very good at mathematics. So the right calculation of mathematics were done by the people of Mesopotamia, and this was the legacy which was carried on to the next generation only by copying and recording the clay tablets. If the writing was not there, their achievement would be of no use for the next generation. So whatever they achieved, that was carefully preserved and copied in the clay tablet, and that was given to the next generation. And they also developed such kind of library, like the Syrian ruler in the city of Nineveh made a library where such kind of clay tablets were carefully preserved, and it was a rich legacy which was given by the people of Mesopotamian civilization.